Good evening. The state of New York has just announced that it will be giving up to $15,600 to undocumented migrants who were hit by the pandemic. Meanwhile, over in Pennsylvania, the State Department over there has just agreed to remove the names of dead citizens from their voter rolls. Now, over in Texas, an official with the Attorney General's office, he said during a House inquiry that election fraud prosecutions in the state of Texas have hit an all-time high. And lastly, over at the U.S. southern border, experts are warning that illegal immigrants and cartels are renting children in order to cross the border and enter the United States. Let's go through these stories together. This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Now let's start today's discussion over in Pennsylvania. According to an election integrity watchdog group, the state of Pennsylvania has agreed to remove the names of dead people from their voter rolls. This came after a lawsuit between the state of Pennsylvania and this watchdog group reached a settlement. The lawsuit, which was filed by the Public Interest Legal Foundation back in November, alleged that around 21,000 registrants who had died were still on the state's voter rolls at the time of the 2020 presidential election. Ultimately, after the lawsuit was all said and done, Pennsylvania agreed to compare its voter registration database with a Social Security death index and then direct all county election commissions to remove the names of the dead voters. Here's what the president of this watchdog group said in a statement. This marks an important victory for the integrity of elections in Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth's failure to remove deceased registrants created a vast opportunity for voter fraud and abuse. It is important to not have dead voters active on the rolls for 5, 10, or even 20 years. This settlement fixes that. Now, this lawsuit was initially filed after this foundation said that it found that 9,000 of the 21,000 dead voters had been dead for more than 5 years, and nearly 2,000 voters had been dead for more than 10 years. Here's what the Pennsylvania Department of State said in a statement. The Department of State is pleased that this agreement will offer Pennsylvania's county boards of election another valuable tool to maintain the most accurate and up-to-date voter rolls possible. Also, as another part of the settlement, the Department of State of Pennsylvania agreed to pay $7,500 to the foundation to partially cover their attorney's fees and other related costs. If you would like to read more about this voter cleanup effort over in Pennsylvania, the link to that article will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And by the way, that is that same little description box that is right below that like button that I hope you take a moment to smash. Because it goes without saying that videos that are like this, talking honestly and openly and transparently about what is happening in this world, are routinely censored, throttled, or outright removed by big tech giants like YouTube. However, when you smash that like button, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. 4 days ago, Joe Biden unveiled his $2 trillion infrastructure plan, which, over the next several months, he will have to try to pass through an almost evenly divided Congress. Now, Joe Biden dubbed this proposal as the American Jobs Plan, and it includes quite a range of things, from traditional projects like roads and bridges to climate initiatives and programs that are outside of what's traditionally considered to be in the scope of infrastructure. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we put together this infographic here, which breaks down this $2 trillion plan item by item so that you can actually know what is being proposed. Now, together here on this episode, we'll go through these items together, but if you would like your own digital copy of that infographic, I'll throw a link into the description box below this video to a page where you can subscribe to the Epoch Times for just a single $1, and you will get instant access to that infographic right away. It'll get emailed to you. Now, let's go through this budget together, starting with the transportation category. Now, in total, we counted $621 billion of this plan to be going to things that we can categorize generally as transportation infrastructure and resilience. And here's how it breaks down. $115 billion will go to modernizing bridges, highways, roads, and main streets that are in most need of repair. $20 billion will go to improving road safety. $85 billion will go to modernizing the existing transit systems. $80 billion will go to fixing up Amtrak, which is the nationwide train service, which currently has a fairly large backlog of repairs. $174 billion goes towards investment in the electric vehicle market. So, by the way, if this law gets passed, it might be a good time to invest in the electric vehicle market, just my opinion. $25 billion is for airports. $17 billion goes to inland waterways, coastal ports, land ports of entry, and ferries, so generally water-related infrastructure. $20 billion is allocated to a new program that will reconnect neighborhoods that were historically cut off to ensure that new projects, and this is a quote, increase opportunity, advance racial equity and environmental justice, and promote affordable access. Another $25 billion is dedicated to funding what this proposal calls ambitious projects that have tangible benefits to the economy but are too large or complex for the existing funding programs. So I don't exactly know what that refers to. Maybe it'll get explained before the bill goes into law. Another $50 billion is allocated to investments that will improve infrastructure resilience, which includes things like building a national network of electrical vehicle chargers and electrifying at least 20% of the yellow school buses in our country. Now, aside from transportation, another $111 billion will go to replacing 100% of America's lead pipes and service lines in order to ensure safe drinking water. Another $100 billion is allocated to building high-speed broadband infrastructure to reach 100% coverage. Another $100 billion will go towards, and this is quite interesting by the way, re-energizing America's power infrastructure that will place the United States, and this is a quote by the way, on the path to achieving 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035. Now again, if you would like to read more about this plan, if you would like to see that full breakdown, the list will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And also, I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment in the comment section below about what you think of this $2 trillion deal. I mean, when I read it, some of these things seemed all right, like things like building up airports, modernizing transit systems, getting rid of lead pipes. But some of them are things that I would need to look a lot more further into, such as environmental justice and creating the climate core. Who knows what exactly that will mean. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Let's talk about it. And now let's move on over to Texas. The Texas State Senate has just approved a bill which would, among other things, ban mail-in ballot drop boxes as well as most drive-through voting in the state of Texas. It would also require that in order to qualify for a mail-in ballot, voters with disabilities would have to prove that they cannot go in person and access the polls. Now, while Democrats say that such a measure suppresses voters, especially those with disabilities and ethnic minorities, Republicans say that this legislation ensures election integrity. According to a Republican state senator, here is the purpose of the bill. It's designed to address areas through process where bad actors can take advantage, because we want the people of Texas to be confident their elections are fair, honest, and open. He further went on to say that the legislation standardizes and clarifies voting rules so that every Texan has a fair and equal opportunity to vote, regardless of where they live in the state. And now that it's passed the Senate, the bill is now heading over to the House for committee hearings. And all this comes at a time when election fraud prosecution in Texas has reached an all-time high. That's according to Jonathan White, who is the head of the election fraud agency within the Attorney General's office. During a hearing in front of the Texas House, he said that the amount of election fraud cases is higher than our historical average by a long shot. Afterwards, he was asked by lawmakers in the House if there were any trends in election fraud prosecutions, to which he replied that they have 510 offenses pending against 43 defendants in court right now. He then went on to say that about 80% of the pending cases involved alleged mail-in ballot fraud, and 60% of the resolved cases also involved mail-in voting. Mr. White, he also said during the hearing that, "I think we could both agree that 99.9% of people are honest and forthright. They don't cheat at elections. They don't go around murdering people or committing aggravated robberies either." If you would like to read more about either this new legislation that just passed the Texas Senate or about this uptick in election fraud-related prosecutions, those links will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. But actually, while we are on the topic of Texas, 3 days ago, the governor of Texas signed an executive order that effectively bans COVID vaccine passports within the state, something similar to what Florida did last week. Now, specifically, this Texas executive order, it bars state agencies that receive public funds from requiring a person to show a vaccine passport in order to receive goods, receive services, or to enter the building. Upon issuing the executive order, here's what Greg Abbott, the Texas governor, said. "Every day, Texans return to normalcy as more people get the COVID vaccine. In fact, this week, Texas will surpass 13 million doses administered. Those shots help slow the spread of COVID, reduce hospitalizations, and reduce fatalities. But, as I've said all along, these vaccines are always voluntary and never forced. Government should not require any Texan to show proof of vaccination and reveal private health information just to go about their daily lives." Now, in general, this ties into a broader debate about these passports, that several countries as well as several airlines have floated the idea of using them. In fact, just last week, we here reported on how New York, it became the first state in the entire country to roll out what they call the Excelsior Pass, which is a system that would require New Yorkers to show proof of vaccination at major events. Now, critics of these passports say that it will essentially create two classes of people here in this country, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. Furthermore, according to the ACLU, if a smartphone is required to act as a vaccine passport, like it is in New York, that would adversely affect low-income people. Here's what they said in a statement. A system that is exclusively digital, whether by design or as a practical matter, would be a non-starter because it would increase inequality. Many people don't have smartphones, including disproportionate numbers from some of our most vulnerable communities, such as people who are low income, have disabilities, or are homeless. Furthermore, the ACLU said that the passport system would also have to be decentralized, not allow for tracking, and not allow for the creation of new databases. And so at this moment, it looks like different states are going in very different directions, with states like New York testing out vaccine passports, whereas states like Florida and Texas are banning them altogether. As to what will happen in the future, only time will tell. If you would like to read more about these vaccine passports for yourself, that link will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And now let's talk a bit about the southern border. According to our reporter, who is on the ground down there right now, she interviewed an expert on the border who told her that illegal immigrants are renting children in order to cross the border, which is, by the way, a very similar problem as to what happened back at the border in 2019 during that surge. Back then, back in 2019, the Department of Homeland Security set up rapid DNA testing, which revealed that 30% of families who were coming across two test areas, one in El Paso and one in the Rio Grande Valley, were not really families. Just to give you an example, in one case, a man from Honduras, he bought a 6-month-old baby in Guatemala in order to pose as a family and get priority release. Now, according to the former acting secretary of the DHS, of the Department of Homeland Security, renting a child varies in cost from less than $100 to more than $1,000. Here's what he said during an interview when we interviewed him 2 years ago. Everybody knows that if they bring a child, they'll be allowed to stay in the United States. They call it a passport for migration. Now, by the way, the reason that we have to talk so much about 2019 is because, for one, it appears that the same thing is happening again, and secondly, thus far, the Biden administration has not implemented widespread DNA testing of families, and so we have no data this year to compare it to. However, right now in 2021, the number of people with family units who are apprehended by Border Patrol is increasing sharply every single month. In February, almost 19,000 people who were within family units were apprehended, which is more than double of that in January, and March, last month, they appear to be even higher. In fact, the border facilities are so overwhelmed right now that in some cases, families are just being released into the United States without even being given a date as to when they should appear in immigration court. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we interviewed Mark Morgan, who is the former acting commissioner of the Customs and Border Protection Agency, and he told us that he believes that children are again being rented to adults, and that it's going to get much worse. Here's what he said. I think it's happening right now. As to the magnitude, I don't know. My understanding is that the same amount of resources that we sent down in 2019, that same surge, to really be able to find out and determine fake families, it's not there. At the end of the day, no, they cannot definitively determine who these people are every single time. Furthermore, we had an opportunity to speak with Tom Homan, who is the former acting director of ICE, and he reiterated the fact that the Biden administration has not implemented widespread DNA testing of families. Here's what he said. When I was the ICE director, we had criminal investigations where children were being rented by cartels to pose as a family unit. Once they get released, they get sent back to Mexico and re-rented again. It happens. Now, as to what the cartels think about the current administration, here's what Mr. Homan had to say. No one's celebrating more this presidency than the criminal cartels in Mexico. I'm sick of them saying they're being humane. When you send enticements out that put the most vulnerable people in the arms of criminal cartels, it's dangerous. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we reached out to officials at both the Department of Homeland Security and the Customs and Border Protection agencies in order to ask them what steps they are taking in order to verify family units, but we have thus far not heard back. If you would like to read more about this practice of illegal immigrants and cartels renting children in order to cross the border and get into the United States, that link will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And now let's talk a bit about New York. Just yesterday, it was announced that New York will give up to $15,600 to undocumented migrants who were affected by the pandemic. Now, this measure was approved by the state legislature earlier this week, where they allocated $2.1 billion of the state's entire budget to this undocumented immigrant program. Officially, they called it the Excluded Worker Fund. The way that the program works is that undocumented workers will be eligible to receive $15,600 if he or she can prove that they are a resident in the state of New York, if they are ineligible for other unemployment benefits, and that if they can prove that they lost income during the pandemic. According to the Fiscal Policy Institute, which is a New York-based policy group, about 92,000 workers in New York State will be eligible for this full $15,600 payment. Undocumented migrants who are unable to meet the same level of verification will be eligible for a lower amount of money, $3,200, which, by the way, is the same amount of federal assistance that many Americans have already received through stimulus checks. Now, this relief fund came after immigrants' rights groups, they pushed for it, including by spending at least the last 3 weeks on a hunger strike. Here's how one undocumented worker, who is also a member of a group called the New York Communities for Change, described it. There have been 23 days without food, 23 days when I was hungry and in pain. But it hasn't just been 23 days. It's actually been decades of pain, the pain of indifference and negligence. Today, our work today has been recognized. Our dignity has been recognized, and our dignity has been lifted by passing this fund. Now, if you would like to read more about this program over in New York, that link will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And now lastly, as we already mentioned in several previous episodes, on the very same day that Joe Biden was sworn into office, YouTube, they made the unilateral decision to demonetize our program. We can now no longer run any ads before, during, or after our episodes, and the Super Chat feature has just been disabled. They are essentially snuffing out our independent journalism. However, if you would like to support us, I will throw a link into the description box below this video to a page where you can subscribe to the Epoch Times. It doesn't cost much. In fact, you can try it for just a single $1. But by subscribing, not only will you be supporting independent journalism, but you will get unfettered access to all of our investigations, our reports, our opinion content, our video documentaries, all of our infographics, and if anything ever happens here on YouTube, you will have continued access to all of our video programs, like Facts Matter, Crossroads, American Thought Leaders, and all the rest. Again, that link will be in the description box below this video. I hope you click on it, I hope you subscribe, and I hope that you join us on this journey of exploring this world through honest journalism that is based in truth and tradition. Now, if you haven't already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to this YouTube channel in order to get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed while you still can. And until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.